I'm joined remotely via Zoom by Katy McKnight, the Director of Community Engagement for the San Francisco-Marin Food Bank. Katy, thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, George.
So, Katy, since you run the volunteer program and work out in the community, how has the COVID-19 epidemic impacted the San Francisco-Marin Food Bank, and what are you seeing out there in the community?
Yeah, George, I've been at the food bank 7.5 years, and we've never seen anything like this before. We've never seen such a rapid increase in the needs of our services. That is something that we just were not anticipating, and we didn't really know what was going to happen when COVID and all the shelter in place really began. And for us, right now we're serving an additional 30,000 households a week. So we've nearly doubled our distribution. And I think that's the first thing we're noticing is just how severe the need is and how severely it's spiked. And then additionally, it's who those participants are. So we have our participants that may have lost access to the pantry that they typically attended. But really what we're learning now, the more I'm out in the community, the more I'm talking to those that are coming to our pantries, it's those that this is often their first time needing food assistance, and it's due in direct to job loss from COVID or being affected specifically by COVID. So for me, that's one of the things that really stands out is how quickly the need has spiked and how large that need is, and really who it is that we're serving, and seeing that shift so much more than it looked like pre-COVID-19.
And so with the COVID-19 and the impact of more families and children asking for food, what have you and your team done to respond to the situation?
Yeah, so I think the first thing for us that was sort of an indicator that things were about to change really significantly for us was we look at our Find Food page on our website as sort of an indicator. And in February this year, that site had about 900 visits. In April of this year, that site had 25,000 visits. So we started seeing that increase, and we knew early on we were going to need to pretty quickly and adjust our services. So we've done that a couple of ways. The biggest way in which we've had impact in the community is what we are calling our pop-up pantries. So we had over 110 of our pantry sites out of 275 had to close directly because of COVID-19. But right now we know that there's increased need. So we've opened these pop-up pantries. This week we are opening our 23rd pop-up pantry across San Francisco and Marin. And these are our pantries in every quadrant of the city and across Marin, where our families, our participants can go each week to gain access to healthy grains, protein, and fresh produce. When we first started these pop-ups in late March, we were looking at serving about 300 to 600 households each week. Now all of those pop-ups are serving over 1,200, 1,500. We have one pop-up that serves consistently 1,700 households each week.
Wow, that's quite a volume. Would you mind sharing with the audience probably one of your kind of favorite stories or moments through the pop-up pantries? Because now more than ever the food banks are out in the community itself instead of having people come to your site.
Yeah, I think back to one of the first pantries we opened was a site out in the Bayview. And I was there sort of acting as the greeter, helping manage the line, answer questions. And we don't ask many questions of our participants when they come to our pantries, but I like to try to strike up conversation. And I spoke to this woman who is a barista at an independent coffee shop and had lost her job. And we were just talking, I was asking how she had heard about the food bank, was she familiar with the food bank? And she said, I knew that the food bank was there and was providing food, but it wasn't anything, I never thought I would need food assistance. She asked if I had kids, which I said no. And she said, I have 2 high school age boys. Do you know how much one high school age boy eats, let alone 2 high school age boys? And she took a pause and got a little teary-eyed and said, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to be able to do my job as a mom and keep my children fed. And then I heard about the food distribution. I heard that I had access to food, and it adds a little bit of relief and makes me feel a little bit better that I know I can at least do that and provide for my sons. And I think that for me was one of the moments where we get so caught up in the logistics and we're moving so quickly and trying to serve so many people that sometimes the impact and the true stories of those that we're serving can get lost. And for me, that was that moment where I was able to sort of take a deep breath and reflect on the work that we're doing, and knowing that, you know, all of the support we're gathering, all of the food that we're distributing, it really does mean something, and it really is tangible, and we are directly affecting the lives of those that we're serving. And I think that's a moment that I've been carrying with me for 6 weeks now, and it still brings, you know, gives me goosebumps, and it makes me pretty emotional just to think. And that was just one of the thousands of households that we are serving in response to COVID-19.
Thank you. That was really great. So besides the pop-up pantries, and now you're doing the deliveries to people's homes, especially seniors, for example, what additional needs are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so to your point, we're doing the pantries. We're doing our deliveries to 11,000 seniors who have access to their pantry program we call Pantry, so our home delivered grocery program. We are also seeing a significant increase in need for CalFresh, which is the SNAP or the food stamp program here in California. And we have a whole team that's dedicated to helping those apply. Last year in March, 39,000 people across the state of California applied for those benefits. This year in March, 94,000 people across California applied for those benefits. So one of the ways we're helping is helping people get access to as many benefits as possible. And we also know that we are facing challenges in food procurement. You know, the price of eggs or the price of protein has increased. We know that we are challenged with recruiting volunteers. The more pop-up sites we can open is dependent upon our ability to recruit volunteers and our ability to secure sites to have these pop-ups. Then we also know that our participants, food insecurity is just one of the challenges that they're facing in response to COVID-19. So, you know, really looking at all of the other agencies that are providing services in San Francisco, and identifying how we can work together, how we can refer participants back and forth to each other so that the participants are getting access to all of the services that they need, because food is one part of this, and it's a pretty big part, but you know, the effects of COVID-19 on those that we're serving, which, you know, are the most vulnerable populations in San Francisco, and now really have expanded to being a greater population in San Francisco and Marin. We're trying to, as holistically as possible, meet all of their needs as best we can.
How could people, you know, basically get involved with the food bank? You know, there's volunteering, obviously, dropping off food. You guys are running a funding campaign. Could you share a little bit about that?
We are, yeah. So one of the best ways to help the food bank is by making a financial donation. So right now, we do have a COVID-19 specific funding campaign, $100,000 match that is helping us to meet the increased need. For every $1 donated, the food bank is able to provide 2 meals to the community. So the way the food bank works, we purchase tractor trailer loads of product. We work on a really large scale, which comes with a cost. So all that financial support is really impactful to us. Donations can be made right on our website, www.sfmfoodbank.org, and you'll see the big banner right on the top that says COVID-19 support. Additionally, we need volunteer help. So we are staffing volunteers in our warehouse who are helping us pack all these senior food boxes and bags that are being delivered. We need volunteers at all of our pop-up pantries as they continue to grow and we continue to add these pop-up pantries. And that can be done at volunteering.sfmfoodbank.org. Again, if you just go to our main website, you can get all the links to get involved. And then the third thing that, you know, I'm so grateful to be here with you today, George, to talk about is awareness. I think people understand that there's an increased need because of COVID-19, and I think that the more we can share how directly impacted so many San Franciscans and folks in Marin really are by COVID-19. And we know that recovery is going to take a really long time. And especially for those most vulnerable populations, when we talk about that recovery and as that trickle down recovery, those will be the last to recover. And we are going to be here for them until, you know, everybody can get back on their feet, or for those that will continue to need our services. So we are in this for the long haul. So the more people are talking about food insecurity, the better for us.
So Katie, out of this complete meltdown, what do you see are positive things that could come out of the COVID-19? It's like putting an X-ray on our system. So what do you see happening?
There's a few ways I think that when we look back on COVID-19 and sort of, debrief, if you will, I think there's, for me, the couple of things that initially stand out is I hope that people can take comfort in knowing that the food bank and these safety net services will always be there, and that we can weather nearly anything together. And I hope that people are able to take some comfort in that. But I would also say that this has allowed us to open up our eyes a little bit on our operating, both the food bank and, at the city and governmental level. The way we're operating right now is very different than how the food bank would typically operate. We've had to be nimble, we've had to move quickly, we've had to pivot much faster than we typically would like to. And I think we've been able to be really successful in that. And I think this also gives us a chance to look at food insecurity as a whole and really looking at what are all the factors that can cause an individual to face hunger, and what are the steps along the way, what are the other opportunities we can have as a community to affect change for those that we're serving, to help alleviate those challenges, help alleviate that fear, help alleviate the stress that comes with food insecurity. And as I alluded to earlier, food insecurity is just one challenge that our participants face. So it has definitely been highlighted right now during COVID-19, and I hope that as we move forward, we can continue to look back and remember that this is one part of a much larger picture for those that are struggling in San Francisco and Marin, and that we can work together on a bigger level to affect change for these participants. And then I think the last thing that really has stood out to me is just how generous the community has been, both our corporate partners, our financial donors, our volunteer donors, our other community partners. And really think we're learning that we are much more nimble than we thought we would be, and as a community that is trying to serve our neighbors in need, and that I take comfort and I take solace in knowing that we do have the ability to pretty quickly affect really big change. Doubling our distribution in 7.5, 8 weeks is pretty rapid for us, and we've been able to do it because we have so much support.
Thank you. So really appreciate everything that you and the food bank are doing, and we'll make sure that people have the contact information on how to engage as volunteer, donation, etc. Please stay safe out there as you're out in the community, and please keep helping our community feed themselves. Obviously, it's a dire need.
Thank you, George. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the work that we're doing. We're all really proud to be food bankers right now, and thank you for letting us share a little insight into that with you and your audience.
I'm joined remotely via Zoom by Shannon Eizenga, the Executive Director of the Gubbio Project. Shannon, thank you for being here. I would love to start this morning with just having you share with the audience why St. Boniface Church created the Gubbio Project.
Sure, absolutely. So the Gubbio Project was founded in 2004 by Father Louis Vitali, a Franciscan priest and big lifetime social justice activist, was arrested over 400 times for different initiatives and movements. And he had been assigned to the parish in the Tenderloin, St. Boniface Church. And so the story goes, he would go out in the mornings before opening up the gate to the church and would just be in relationship and have conversations with the people sleeping in the tents and sleeping on the streets. And through relationship, he discovered there was this big need where folks who were living on the streets were not actually getting any kind of quality sleep. No surprise. The streets are not a restful place. And he looked at this huge empty church and thought, well, what is church? How are we living our values? How are we living our Franciscan values of honoring the inherent worth and divinity and dignity of all life? And the seed of Gubbio was born then. And so he opened up the sanctuary doors. It was a long, complicated process to get buy-in from the community and parishioners, but eventually he did. And the Gubbio Project was born, a space where folks can come in to the sanctuaries and get some compassionate refuge and respite. And it has now become its own 501c3 nonprofit, profit separate from the church. And we have a separate location as well in the Mission in San Francisco.
And then I know that the sanctuary provides support services. Could you share just a little bit about what those sanctuary services are?
Yeah, so we endeavor to tend to the whole person. Folks are welcomed as they are. There's as barrier-free access as possible. So we tend to the psychological, spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being of our guests. Of course, if you come into the space on any given day, you will hear the sounds of deep slumber and snoring. Folks are resting. We also can make connections to other social services. We give out tons of supplies, everything from toiletries to garbage bags to razors to socks to sleeping bags to tents, you name it, we give it out. We have spiritual care, chaplains, and volunteers that are on site to be a presence of love and support to our guests. And, you know, something that really matters a lot for our folks living on the streets, having clean, well-stocked restrooms where folks can tend to their bodies with some dignity. And we're able to do different things at the different sites. We're able to offer food and massage, foot care. We have mobile health clinics that tend to our folks as well, and work really closely with a number of different partners in both neighborhoods.
And so how has COVID-19 impacted both the Gubbio Project and the two St. Boniface's Church and hosting those services?
Yeah, it's impacted us and the churches pretty dramatically. As you know, churches across the state are closed. Worship services have all gone on Zoom like everything else in our lives. And unfortunately, the Gubbio Project was not considered essential. We're not a formal shelter. We are a drop-in center, and a number of homeless service providers that provide a similar quality of service have either closed their services or have gone curbside. So, for example, the St. Anthony Foundation that makes meals every day, normally in their dining hall pre-COVID, have now had to shift to offering all of their meals prepackaged to go out the door. So the ways in which people are serving folks and providing care have had to shift dramatically. And for us, being in partnership with two faith communities, that has meant that we've had to close, which has been very, very heartbreaking and hard for us, because the folks who suffer the most, of course, are the ones who are already the most marginalized and scraping by as it is. We tend to see the most chronically homeless folks in the city. So we've shifted our focus to advocacy as much as possible, really supporting our partners, other providers, working closely with the Coalition on Homelessness, working closely with the city, advocating to get our unhoused guests the care and services that they so desperately need right now.
And I know that you guys are shut down for the moment. How can people who are watching this get involved in supporting your efforts and or your network of partners while we're all sheltering in place?
Mm-hmm. So there are a number of ways to get involved, and depending on folks' comfort level, obviously there are some folks who don't want to be leaving their house and shouldn't because they are a vulnerable population. And I absolutely support the orders to only be leaving your home for essential reasons. However, there are a couple of places that are looking for volunteers. I know Mother Brown's Kitchen in the Bayview is looking for help. The St. Anthony Foundation, while they're not accepting volunteers, they are doing really good work here on the ground and Glide, giving out food. Both will happily accept donations. most places are going to be really grateful for financial donations right now. I think on the other side of this, we're going to be coming back to a very different fundraising climate because everybody's been hit really hard. I think the future looks really unclear. So if you can make a financial donation to a nonprofit that is providing support right now, please do that. Supporting the work of the Coalition on Homelessness and other partners that are advocating for hotels, for safe sleeping sites. Another big push that I know myself and other partners are working on is trying to just get staff and volunteers into the existing isolation and quarantine hotels. It's been really hard to staff those sites. Whether they are hotels that are for vulnerable populations or the unsheltered population, which is its own vulnerable population. Goodwill, for instance, is trying to hire a cache of workers to be able to go in there. So if you are someone who's been unemployed or furloughed and you're looking for temporary work and you're looking for a way to give back and you have the resources and capacity to do that, Goodwill is looking to hire folks to step in and do that work. So that's another way.
And Shannon, over the years that you've been doing this, what would you say has been the biggest impact that you and your team have made on the unhoused community members?
Oh goodness, I think our impact is hard to quantify. And when you ask that question, George, the first thing I think of is a young woman that I met recently. Prior to COVID, I was in the church early one morning, 6 a.m., and a young woman came in with her 3-month-old baby. And she was escaping a domestic violence situation. And she had nowhere else to go. And she had started to get plugged in with some other services locally, but she just needed a couple of hours of rest. It was all that she needed. So she laid down in the pew, she handed me her baby, and I sat holding her 3-month-old baby while she rested in the pew. Underneath these gorgeous stained glass windows while incense is burning and people are coming in and out. It was a deeply moving experience for me and something that is so simple and yet so profound, that we existed as a space of sanctuary and refuge and safety where she could be welcomed and her child could be welcomed as she is, no questions asked. And if that isn't church, I don't know what is. So I think the community that has evolved out of Gubbio and the community specifically rooted in the acknowledgement and deep belief that all life has inherent value, that we are all worthy of respect and belonging and love, and that there's incredible transformation that is possible when we welcome the fullness of someone, regardless of the choices that they've made, regardless of the circumstances that they've experienced. And I think that's part of what makes Gubbio so special.
Thank you. That was a really wonderful story. And I think, the final question is, out of this pandemic and virtual meltdown, what do you see are things that, could come out of it to really help our unhoused community and our community at large?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are many things. And the first thing I'll say is there are so many brilliant people at all levels of this, from direct service on the ground, very grassroots to city level, affecting policy change. There are brilliant people doing really good work and working really, really hard around the clock on this. And this has taken us a long time to get into this crisis, and COVID has exacerbated it. And unfortunately, there aren't easy fixes, but I have a lot of hope in what I'm seeing being done around getting folks into hotels and into safe spaces. I am hopeful that on the other side of this, whatever the other side of this is, I think we can all agree it will never look the same. I am hopeful that this is the catalyst to create more lasting change in how we are addressing homelessness and all of the related issues, that we might have some longer term lasting solutions to this crisis.
Thank you, Sharon. That was, I really love what you guys do. And I really think that, the whole community is coming together, and it's wonderful to see that sadly the meltdown has provided an opportunity to put a really large spotlight on your work, but also on the situation at large. And please stay safe out there. We'll make sure that viewers have, the contact information on how to get a hold of you and to make donations or to reach out. And, I hope that you and your staff are safe and healthy, and, really appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you so much, George. You as well.